To see more awesome interviews and content such as this, make sure to check out Liana Kersner's YouTube channel. I'll have a link below in the description.
It's another Dialogue Options, and I'm very, very excited because I am here with Rich from Review Tech USA. Rich, thanks for coming on the program.
Not a problem. How are you?
Great. I reached out to you thinking you didn't know who I was. It was very funny. I didn't connect your YouTube with your Twitter account.
Yeah, you followed me for a long time. I followed you for a long time too.
I didn't know that was you, and I finally put it together. But it was because of the ongoing mini saga you had with the Ashley Judd. I believe it was a TED Talk, and her unsubstantiated statement that video games maim and dump women for sport. So let's jump into that. What made you decide, of all the things you could talk about that day, what made you decide to jump in to that topic as a gaming YouTuber?
Because, well, it was funny. I actually saw a Forbes article from Eric Kane. I didn't even know about her TED Talks, and I've actually had an interview with him before on Twitch. And I read what she said, and I'm like, I mean, which I know he's a very good journalist, and I didn't question him, but I'm like, there's no way she would just flat out say something like that. That's totally unsubstantiated. So I watched the TED Talks, and yes, she actually said something exactly like that. That was totally unsubstantiated. And the thing about when, like, I wish I remember exactly what she said off the top of my head, where she says that the gaming industry makes billions of dollars. She was at a party in Aspen, and the gaming industry makes millions of dollars off of maiming and dumping women for sport. And then she went basta. I'm kind of paraphrasing for everyone out there, but it's pretty much the context. Liana could tell you too. I exaggerate anything. And that is first off, you know this too. There is no game from a credible indie developer or AAA developer, at least that I know of, unless there's one out there that you and I have missed, that its main goal, or even a side goal, is to maim and dump women for sport. So what game was she talking about? What magical game that you and I both missed is she talking about where it's your main goal, or any kind of goal, to go and physically attack women? And of course, like Eric Kane said in his article, she was probably talking about Grand Theft Auto 5. It's safe to say, and I could be wrong, Ashley, I know you're probably never going to watch this, but if you do, that you don't play video games. You're going by what another person said, that another person said, that another person said, and you come out and you state the information like fact. And the proof, and I'm sure you could see this too, Liana, that it was absolute bullshit, is why didn't she give an example? How could you have a TED Talks, be up on stage, say something like that, that's so bold and dangerous to say, and not say, well, this game does it, that game does it. You don't know of a game. But you say it in a manner that is very convincing, and when you have a bunch of people that are impressionable like that, that misinformation spreads. And like I said in my video, that's one of the things that's so dangerous right now. The internet, information spreads so fast on the internet, it's almost like another dark ages of information, because you never know what's true and what's not true.
Yeah, it's funny because my reaction to the original clip when I saw it, I gave her the benefit of the doubt, and I realized I kind of rewrote it in my head, that I was like, well, that's not true. So it's exaggeration for effect. And how I took what she was saying is that game developers are selling out their consumers when they're the ones producing the content that people like Ashley Judd take issue with. Now, I think that's a valid point, but yeah, the way she said it was certainly assuming facts not in evidence on the one hand, but you've touched on this as well. It plays on the greater stereotypes about gamers. And in the last 2 years, I have heard a lot about the concerns that other gamers have. And I've had to sort of become sensitized to this because, I come at it from a completely different aspect. I'm sick of being called a unicorn. I'm sick of being called some magical fairy creature that isn't supposed to exist. I've been playing games since I was 3-year-old. I'm OG. I'm original gamer, like Pong, Zork, nothing but net sort of thing. I
Mhm.
mean, the original game system, the original PC I played on had one of those green monochrome screens, right?
Oh
And
God, me too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, Tandy 1000 for the win. but and I had to sort of be sensitized because I'm not the group that, and this is where this identity politics things come in, because I'm not, one of those white male cisgendered straight, that catch-all thing that gamer sort of evokes. I don't have the same sensitivities as people um who actually fit that description. So I wonder if you could sort of get into what's going on for this, for people on the other side of the issue, for people who care about, women and equality as you do, and you've stated openly. I wonder if we can get a bit of empathy for the other side here.
My concern is this: is we've become politically correct to the point where it gets into censorship, and what happens is that you can never find the true. It's getting tougher to find the true issues and things. I'm not saying that there isn't sexism in the games industry. That would be bullshit, and anyone out there who says that it doesn't exist at all is, well, I'm going to be blunt with you, an idiot. But at the same time, to over exaggerate things or to spread out misinformation like she did and say there's a game out there that simply doesn't exist is also dangerous, because then you have people who are ignorant to the gaming industry who say, like, well, Ashley Judd said there's games out there that women are getting attacked for sport, and I don't know about it, so they just think that exists. And then what that does is, whether you're a female gamer or a male gamer, what it does is it makes people have a generalization about you. And it's just a very dangerous precedent to set. And you could actually use that same logic even outside of the gaming industry, where people just generalize and make assumptions and spread misinformation that kind of attacks a whole group of people, whether it be an interest or a race or a sexual preference or gender. And people, you have to realize when you're, and I have to realize it too, and sometimes I don't, I'll be honest with you, and that's kind of my own fault. When you're in front of a large group of people, whether it be on YouTube or a stage or something like that, you have to realize how much of an impact you can make on them. And when you almost willingly, I hope that she didn't do it purposely, but it kind of seems like she did, when you almost willingly spread misinformation, you're basically trying to make a lie a fact, and then that group of people goes out and spreads that misinformation. Then you have a rampant lie that could hurt a whole group of people. Like, they may look at us because we game as maybe a social misfit or a degenerate because of things like that, because we approve of games that maim and dump women, which is bullshit.
Yeah, it's funny because your initial video on the subject, and you just 5 different follow-up questions came up. So I'm going to pick one, and hopefully
Okay,
it's
go
the
ahead.
right one. Your original video on the subject was almost a case study in the disconnect between how gamers see content and how non-gamers who have been, exposed to this stigma do it. Because your background for that video was Resident Evil 7 gameplay.
Yes.
And in it, a woman is attacking you with a knife, and after a prolonged battle, you
And I got called
hatchet
out
her
for
to
that
death.
6,000 times, but continue.
I am sure you did. And because I'm looking at this and I'm going, they call it my scream face. I see what he's doing. I know what he thinks, but I'm like C-fucking-3PO here, because I see sort of the conventional feminist analysis, but then I see the gamer thing. So it's like human fanboy relations thing going on here, because that is an enemy to a gamer who is trying to attack you, and so you are defending yourself. To the rest of the world, this is horrible violence against women because of the outcome, which is you eventually defeat the enemy by a hatchet to the neck. And to me, this is benevolent sexism, because why is a female enemy supposed to be more worthy of protection or less able to defend? I mean, she's coming at you with a knife 3D style, but it's interesting to hear you caught flack for that. Am I right in the way you look at it? Were you even aware that this was a potential thing when you did it?
No, I wasn't actually.
Okay.
And I didn't even really think about it because she was infected with something. Like, people said it to me, and I'm like, maybe I should take. But I'm like, no, because later on, then you deal. I'm not going to spoil Resident Evil 7 for anybody, but there's the other character where there's a car scene, and you end up popping bullets at him. It wasn't. I looked at it. It wasn't a male or female thing. It was Resident Evil infected. You're shoot. There was a cop in the game that he also. I don't want to spoil again, but he has something interesting that happens to him. You know. It's an equal. Actually, at that point in the game, there was more males that I went after at that point than there was females. So I was like, I get what people are saying, but at the same time, it's Resident Evil. She's infected and she's trying to kill me.
But this, first of all, this comes down to context, but this comes down to games as an interactive medium as opposed to film and TV, where most of our mass comm theory comes from being linear, meaning you cannot change the series of events or the outcome of a movie or a television show. And this is interesting to me because you get an adaptation effect when you record your gameplay content and you put it on YouTube, because now people are experiencing this as something they cannot control and they have a radically different reaction to it accordingly. Now, I think that's what's happened to Ashley Judd. I think she has watched games. She has not played games. So she doesn't understand Grand Theft Auto as you are, blanking on the main guy's name, Michael. You are him or you are Trevor. And Trevor especially, I mean, the headspace in the Trevor scenes is just, it's not a realistic depiction of crime. It is playing a crime movie. So to me, it's like going back to those 80s and 90s. It doesn't matter how you get it as long as you get it. Crime cinema films. And you're playing that. And it's very different to play it and be actively making choices as to what you do as opposed to watching it as a passive audience.
That's a very good point. You're saying from a spectator's perspective, it may be more horrifying, whereas if you play it, you understand the context of what's going on.
Because those mirror neurons kick in, and
Yes.
we know that, thanks to games like Gears of War that actively use mirror neuron theory in their design, that watching something happen, the brain sort of makes it feel like it's happening to you. So for people who don't know, Gears doesn't have action happening when the player is not in control, because that feels weird. And so do you think there actually is a gamer brain? Like, the more you've played video games, the more because I know I do this. I catch my hands twitching in certain action movies or something like that. Want to play the movie, or I start interacting
absolutely.
I start interacting in a gamer perspective. I mean, the game for me, the movie I loved, Slip, was Dread. That was a fabulous movie, but it's like a video game is now an insult in the film world, even though they're copying. It's like this weird Ouroboros of the serpent eating its own tail. Games became cinematic, and then it started doing interesting things that not just movies, but professional sports. That 5K camera tech where they're allowed to freeze and spin around. That's all gaming shot composition. I mean, that's what you see in video games. So do you think there is actually a gamer gaze? Oh God, I'm getting into dangerous territory here. But there is actually a particular way that gamers engage in all media that's different from non-gamers.
Yeah, I think because we've grown up with an interactive medium or media, we may look at other forms of entertainment differently because gaming is the only form of entertainment that you could actually interact with what you see in the screen. So you may take that mindset to you when you go see a film or watch a television show that maybe someone who never actually played a game before, they may not look at it from a perspective that you and I will look at it. And I would think of that as almost being a strong point, if anything, because we understand entertainment from a perspective that someone who never picked up this before may not understand it.
Yeah, well, I mean, what it also does, they found, is it insulates us from the cultivated effect that you get from notably television, film to a lesser extent, but that idea that no, we're continuing to engage actively, cognitively, so we're not having opinions we see over and over and over again normalized in the same way. Now, there are some people that disagree with me on that. They point to, the internet stuff and say there's some sort of sickness within gaming, that there are attitudes and norms that are unhealthy. How do you respond to that criticism?
But you could use that mindset with any industry, the film industry, the television industry. I don't know why there's more of a gaze on the gaming community and the gaming industry, because it's still a relatively young industry compared to film and television, and people just don't understand it. Why is it when there is a game that has a mature rating on it that people lose their minds more when there's an R-rated film or a mature rated TV show? If you are an adult, I want to be able to choose the game I want to. Why did the Australian government for so long censor games when you would have to be an adult to pick it up anyway? Why is there this? If you're a parent and your kid's 12 years old and you're picking him up an M-rated game, that's your responsibility. As long as the industry's doing their job to let you know the content of the game, why is it different? And I think that's once again due to the fact that there's still that stigma that games are for children, even though the children have grown up and are our age now, and we're the ones that are gaming. Kids are actually more of a minority than adults that play games. It's just kind of frustrating that a form of entertainment that has the same warnings and pretty much standards, if not stricter ones, than the movie and TV industries have, is still scrutinized more simply because people are ignorant towards the media.
Yeah. No, I mean, the ESRB is actually a better rating system than the MPAA is, though, just from the amount of detail. So in that case, scrutiny made the system better.
Yes.
Where's the line between, because I've been trying to figure this out for myself, because I recognize that we got a superior rating system because of the moral panic surrounding Doom and Mortal Kombat. It was sort of the what happened in the 60s with films happened to games in the 90s, and complete with a zombie thing that scared the crap out of everybody, slipping in right under the wire. Where do you think the line is between good self-scrutiny, good sort of taking the pulse because of external criticism, and when it becomes too much and actually does just put everyone in a crouch, a defensive crouch, and it's not beneficial anymore?
Well, we're kind of seeing it now, where I almost feel like game developers are feeling obligated to put, whether it be genders in a game or races in a game, when they where it almost feels like it's artificial and it's being forced to appease everybody and be politically correct. I believe it was, forgot the Assassin's Creed game, because there's been 6,000 of them in the past 10 years, where there was, I think, female characters missing that you could choose from the beginning, and everyone lost their minds over it. I think it was Unity. I think it was Unity. Now, I'm not saying there shouldn't be, but okay, it's not, people were losing their minds over it, but I'm like, it's not that big a deal. And when you have that heavy scrutiny, then I almost feel like you're trying to limit the creativity. I'm not saying there shouldn't be women in video games. I'm not saying that at all. But when they feel like they have to have every race in a video game, every gender in a video game, every religion in a video game, are they going to have to do that with every single game, or if someone's going to be offended? And then that hinders the creativity of what the developer and the writer is trying to do. So that's where I feel like there's excess scrutiny, where to the point that I almost feel bad for a game writer or a game developer, because they must be very stressful thinking that, oh crap, what millions of people am I going to offend over something that's really goddamn stupid?
Yeah, I mean, the sad thing about Unity is it's almost like the knives were out for that game before it came out, and so those sort of day one bugs, which were admittedly quite
interesting,
visual, yeah, but I've seen those exact same bugs in Fallout games, and nobody went crazy over them. It was this weird lightning in a bottle thing, and Unity had a very strong female character in Elise. She was interesting, and a female Templar. That's the other challenge with the Assassins games. You put women in them, you put in female assassins. Assassins don't die in their beds in their sleep at the ripe old age of 80, right? They tend to die violently, and that's you know, do you think that the intense toxicity around this issue is actually holding back stories starring women because of this issue of every time a woman's harmed, it gets increased scrutiny?
Yes, because here's my thing. I'm all about women having equality across the board. They need to have equality with everything. If a developer thinks a woman should die a horrible, gruesome death in a game, let them die a horrible, gruesome death in a game. Let them have the same opportunities, both good and bad, as a male. And you can't you can't have equality then have a double standard with something else because you feel uncomfortable going there with the character. Women die horrible deaths just like men do. Let it happen. And that I think would help expand the industry instead of kind of trying to be politically correct in every single sector. Let the game flow. If you feel a woman should die a horrible death in a game, let it happen. It'll make the game better if that's the creative path that you want to take.
It's funny because that does happen in some games, and a game like Far Cry Primal, for instance, primarily minority cast, black
Mm-hmm.
people. Essentially, the final boss is a woman who dies in an incredibly painful way when you defeat her, and yet we haven't heard a whimper about this. Nothing. There's a lot of diversity in Watch Dogs 2. We don't hear very much about this. What's
because
going
the
on?
because the people that are complaining about this don't actually play games and don't know what they're talking about, like Ashley Judd. She goes, like Eric Kane said, for the lowest bearing fruit, which is Grand Theft Auto 5. Do you think she sat down and played Far Cry Primal? I didn't, because I tried like an hour of it. I didn't like it. But do you think she actually sat down and played Far Cry Primal? No, she doesn't. And if she watched my video, which I'm fairly sure that she didn't, and she saw me shooting the woman, she would have been like, oh my God, he's proving my point in the background, even though she has no idea of the context as to why I'm shooting women, because she's infected with some zombifying virus and she's trying to kill me, you know? So
Okay, but what's going on here that it's still wrong to defend yourself against an attacker with a knife, even though that attacker is female? I mean, she is the aggressor in that scene. What's going on? Like, from a man's perspective, you can only speak as an individual, but what's going on here socially?
that the reason why he was like not trying to kill her
Well,
is
no,
what
why is it considered still bad that a first person protagonist, which is presumed male, why is it bad for a man to defend himself against an attacker with a weapon when that attacker is female?
because it's funny. People want equality, but at the same time they don't. They want double standard equality, where it's okay if I put an axe through someone's neck and he has a penis between his legs. But if it's a woman, oh my God, he's showing violence towards women, blah, 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 blah. And it doesn't matter. Who cares what the gender of the attacker is if she's trying to kill me? But that's the thing. That's the thing with hardcore feminists. They want equality, but yet they want a double standard where they're put up on a pedestal. If you want equality, you need to take an axe to the neck just like a guy does. You know what I'm saying? And they don't see that. They want equality, but they don't understand. They also want to be a special snowflake too at the same time.
Now, this is a disconnect that I was going to ask you about, so you gave me a nice segue there.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody responded to your video on the Ashley Judd issue, and they did that. I consider it a canard, and I appreciate that you gave them the hearing because they were respectful and they did seem to care.
Yes, they did.
But I find the logic inherently flawed that you shouldn't disagree with women because they might get internet bads about.
I hate that. I hate that.
Take that hatchet to the neck. And from my side of the aisle, it's like I have been denied the ability to write about certain topics only to see the male editor that denied me the piece go and write about it themselves and then complain about how traumatic the backlash was. And you were very cool to that person, and I appreciate that. But the logic is, to me, going to hold women back if we're not treated as equal in the, you know, the marketplace of ideas. Let's take the battlefield analogy out of it completely. It's a marketplace. People have to
Yes.
buy what you're selling. And if you can negotiate with the guy down the street because he happens to be a guy and the price is the price here, you're going to go where you can get what you perceive to be better value, even though in those negotiated systems you tend to overpay. What do we do? And I know this is a difficult question, but I already asked you what you think, so I'm going to say what do we do? What do we do about this inherent, what you called it, double standard? This putting women up on a pedestal, then putting a giant energy shield around her, and then having turrets if you try to come anywhere near her. You can't have a conversation with a person in that scenario, yeah?
No,
so
you can't.
what do we do?
I don't even know if there's a solution. It just, over time, we're going to have to slowly, like, standards like this where everyone is on the same level. It just, over time, people are going to have to realize, hey, equal opportunity also means that you have to take the good with the bad. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Ashley Judd. Oh, look, I in my video, and they were like, you know, the person who refuted me, or the company that refuted me, I should say, they're like, you cause your followers to go after her and so on and so forth. I'm like, look, I don't condone that. I condemn that. I've condemned it in videos before. But she can't make a bold statement like that and not expect people like me to respond. Okay? If I have dumbass followers, which not all, but there is that small percentage, we all do, that even though I tell them not to, are still going to do stupid things, I can't be responsible for them. But I'm not going to hold my tongue and not give my opinion on something. And yes, I'm very passionate about how I do it, but I'm not going to stop doing that because someone may be stupid and do something, or you know, go and try to go after her because I had an opinion. I think they should be locked up and thrown in a cage for doing something stupid like that. But we can't hold back the way we feel. Like, if Ashley Judd made a video about me, I wouldn't be like, how dare you do that? Now I'm going to have your followers come after me. She has the right to come after me if she wants to. And it has to be both ways. You can't say something like Ashley Judd says and then also play the victim because you're a female and how dare I come after you. You want to go on a stage and say something like that, you're going to have people that are going to detract you.
Well, and all you're really asking for is cite your game. I mean, the only one I can think of is that beat up Anita Sarkeesian game. That actually was maiming a woman for sport or a
But
sport.
Again, that wasn't by a reputable developer.
Mainstream.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, but if we are to say there's one game, but I think that exception, the fact that this is the one we can go, okay, that game did do that. If we look at what's different about that game than the games I think she was referring to, first of all, that is not beat up a woman, that is beat up an identifiable public person who happens to be a woman.
What a stupid, shitty idea to make a game like that, because that makes everything step back, 2 years. But when people do that shit.
But then the same people made games about, all these games came out about Donald Trump, where he was splattered into a bloody mess for sport. And you don't hear anybody complaining about that. The same leftists who complained about that game thought it was okay to maim a candidate for president.
It should be wrong either way. Just like I've called out Anita Sarkeesian 1,000 times in videos. And when I found out that the FBI had valid death threats against her, I was like, that's wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong for doing that, and sending her bomb threats and doing stuff like that is hurting your cause more than you can imagine. Call her out in videos, have an opinion, but don't send her threats, because all it does is make you look like an animal.
Do you think, though, that these people have a cause at all, or is their cause feeling like, a big so-and-so because they made someone afraid? Like, is the doing the actual intent here? Because No, you think they're actually getting spun out, and these are well-meaning people who just do stupid things?
Well, you're talking about the people who send the threats and things like that?
Yeah.
I don't think they're actually, their cause is, they may just actually genuinely hate the person, and they think that instilling fear in them is going to stop them. But all it does is make the entire, like, Gamergate which I'm not pro or anti Gamergate, because I know there's two communities in Gamergate. The negative one is smaller, but I'm not. I lost my train of thought. Damn it.
Do
What
you
was I
think
just?
do you think that, like, what was the motivation to sending those threats? Are these people who want to
They
actually
tried.
scare someone, or
They may just want attention.
okay.
They may try to be hindering their cause, but what they don't realize is that they're shooting themselves in the foot when they do that.
Now, people don't like it when you tell them that there might be a better way to make their point. I have found this. This has been
No, they don't.
an ongoing confusion thing for me. Um, as a YouTuber, I know I get, you should say it this way or you should do it this way. It's all about tone and approach, and people are super hypercritical, and they're trying to help. I appreciate the feedback, but at the same time, then when you talk about people in something like Gamergate and say, I appreciate what you're doing. I don't think you're being effective in the way that you're going about it. I got accused of censorship. Now,
I
this
get
isn't
that too.
censorship, but where do you think this sensitivity is coming from?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's again, it's people having a double standard. I always remember too, with one thing I hated that with Gamergate is that they tried to accuse everyone of being like an 18-year-old male kid. And when there was a video evidence proving that they were showing they had transgender, black, white, gay, straight, they were all, but they just wanted truth in the gaming journalism community. It's the sensitivity. It comes from people wanting their cause to be the only right cause, and not anyone else's opinion is wrong, even if there is some truth to it. And that's the thing I hate, is where people are trying to make their opinion fact, and they're trying to shut out anyone else for what their opinion is, even if their stuff is based in truth as well. And I hate agendas, and I think that's what happens is people become sensitive because they have an agenda and they want to see their agenda become the standard, and that's where I think the sensitivity comes from.
Why do you think so many people need that now, though? That there has to be, to use the fandom term, the one true whatever, and everything else is just false. Why do people need that homogeny to feel secure, do you think?
Because the internet has given a lot of people power. Think about it. You and I have a platform. I wouldn't have had a platform like this before the internet. And I think people feel when they're behind their keyboard and they're talking to a webcam or anything, they're in this bubble and they feel that their motivations or whatever their cause is right. And now that they have this platform, they just want people to simply agree with them. Even you could even go just into the gaming community, how there's fanboy channels and people are pro Xbox, pro PC, and pro PS4. They have that safe community and they want to get their movement forward because now they feel this sense of power, because when they get in front of that camera and microphone, they have a platform that even 8 years ago they would have never had. So there's all these people now fighting for power and want their mindset to come, their mindset and their opinion to be fact. It's the same reason why dictators in the past before have existed, because they wanted their belief system to be everyone's belief system, and they want everyone around them to believe the same thing, and they feel empowered when that happens.
Now, you've touched on something I wanted to ask you about as well, 2 for 2,
Okay.
about this whole fanboy press, and you talk about this in your videos quite a bit. And
because I get accused of it for everything.
That's really interesting because okay, you're not, obviously. You try to think of the consumer, and so you dispense information, you give your opinion, but quite a few times I've heard you say, this is something I think other people may be concerned about. Now that distinguishes you from the whole fanboy press. And the fanboy press in gaming is a problem because it inflates Metacritic scores. It means that the console companies are more likely to deal with people they know are only going to sing their praises about everything and not offer any criticism whatsoever. But the other problem is the minute you start asking questions about, in my case, it was the hardware architecture on the Xbox One. Hardware and software architecture. I'm like, why are you running two operating systems and an operating system to make the two operating systems talk to each other, plus this giant thing that can't be stored on it. There were a lot of issues with that machine. And I think it has made the games that come out from that machine suffer. And there's a lot of good stuff for the Xbox One. But people just said, oh, you're a PlayStation person. And it's like, no, I want my Gears of War. I want, I want my games.
It's a flaw in the fiber of human psyche that they can't, if you're not 100% about something, it's a reason why there's political parties in the United States the way they are. If you aren't 100% about something, whether you're Republican, Democrat, PS4, Xbox One, PC, you're against it. Instead of saying, hey, I'm psyched for the Switch, the Nintendo Switch, but I do have concerns. I just got information today, actually, before I knew I was having this interview. I recorded 3 videos I got to edit afterwards, about the hardware architecture inside the Switch. It's pretty much confirmed now. I already knew what it was, but now everyone's saying, again, it's the Tegra X1. My concern about that is it's dated architecture, fairly dated. It's more powerful than the 7th gen consoles, but it's not as powerful as even the base PS4 and Xbox One. What's going to happen with third-party support because Nintendo put themselves in the same hardware boat as the Wii U? I think the Switch is going to be a much better system, but they are. And I question that, oh, you just hate Nintendo. Why do you hate Nintendo? Nintendo hasn't been about third-party games, which I know is a pile of shit because I've been gaming since I've been in diapers. And Nintendo, yeah, okay, they may have been dicks to third parties, but what made the NES and Super NES successful was the fact that they had third-party games for it. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing, is that unless you just praise something blindly, and you'll still have the detractors saying you're a fanboy. Mm-hmm. It's like you can't be objective. No one wants to be objective. Everyone's on a team. Which, hey, if someone's paying Nintendo and getting paid by Nintendo and Sony for being a fanboy, let me know. I'll take a check.
People are. They get their $300 a game or whatever it is to be uncritical.
Okay. You know something I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean this came out in the NDAs, the whole Shadows of Mordor controversy.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
People were signing contracts that said they wouldn't show bugs. They wouldn't, and to me, it's like, what is your endorsement worth if you're not allowed to do that by the game company? I don't understand this marketing. I don't. I know it's out there, and I know I'd probably make more money if I did understand it, but this seems to make you a very poor source for people to look at regarding their choices in individual titles that are very expensive. $80 is a lot of money to drop on a game. Granted, they say all the time that it is not, compared to index to inflation, it is not as expensive as those cartridge-based games we bought for $50 a pop back in the 80s.
That's very true, yes.
That is true. But there's a lot more games to buy. Yes. It wasn't the Activision shovelware of the 80s that you could wait till it was $5 in a discount bin.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot more. I mean, this week alone, I'm like, my God, why are all the games coming out this week? Why do they all cluster together? And I know there are reasons, but there are concerns with this. And how do you, knowing no matter what you say, someone is going to complain? How do you decide how you talk about a subject?
Well, when it comes to the endorsements, I've been Square Enix came to me, okay, and I was endorsed to talk about Final Fantasy 14, which I said that Square Enix came to me, even though people were like, oh, you weren't transparent enough with that, which that game is awesome, by the way, Final Fantasy 14, and I'm not endorsed by them anymore, so that's just me saying It's a good game. As long as there's two camps or mindsets I'm in with that. If you are transparent, say, hey, this company is endorsing me, so I'm talking about this game, I'm okay with that. If you're doing things like remember when Microsoft was giving people money to be positive about the Xbox One and you're not mentioning anything and you're making it like it's your opinion, that's fucking shady. Yeah. That I have problems with. So with the backdoor stuff, I have an issue with.
Well, that's illegal now.
Yes, the Federal Trade Commission will come after you.
You have to disclose that stuff.
Someone actually tried to complain to the FTC about my Final Fantasy 14 video, but I had enough information in it. But it's not only that. It's just, it's if you're trying to make if you're pretending to have an opinion and you're being paid $20,000 to have that opinion, which I believe some people were, that's just scummy. But if you're telling people, look, I'm being endorsed and they want me to talk about this game, that's different.
Right.
So that's my mindset on that. But you know, but the problem with the problem with the fanboys is, again, it's the same thing, kind of like when you go into politics, is that no one wants a reasoned or sound-minded explanation about something. Everyone wants you to only say what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. Look, I'm excited for the Switch. I have a feeling Nintendo's going to do okay with it. We could talk about that. I know you want to talk about that too.
I know I want to talk about that. I'm trying to wrap up this. Let's go on to the Switch.